The galaxy is old, its empires are powerful, and its wars are endless. Humanity stands. These are the Empyrean Chronicles.
They thought the humans were retreating. The first sign that something was wrong was not the retreat. Retreats were predictable. Across 800 years of recorded fleet combat, every species in the Concordance had learned the same lesson. When a weaker force broke formation and ran, the battle was already decided. The geometry changed. The numbers became simple. Faster ships hunted slower ships. Long-range guns punished exposed engines. Discipline collapsed. Fear did the rest. No admiral with sense mistook disorder for strategy, which was why Fleet Marshal Serrik of the Valor Dominion did not feel triumph when the human line finally turned. He felt suspicion. On the forward display of the command carrier Judgment of Avon, blue tactical markers, human, peeled away from the shattered edge of the engagement zone and drove hard toward the outer dark beyond the moon of Talon Reach. Plasma wakes stretched behind them in pale white spears. They did not scatter completely. That was the first oddity. They broke contact, yes, but not into chaos. The ships bent away on slightly diverging vectors, like thrown blades from the same hand. Serrik narrowed all four eyes. Magnify Sector 9. The hollow expanded. 23 human vessels remained from the original 31. 2 heavy cruisers, 7 destroyers, a screen of frigates, several smaller hulls that Dominion intelligence still classified inconsistently, missile tenders, support corvettes, or improvised fleet auxiliaries, depending on whose report one read. Their engines burned hard. Retreat, but not panic. At his right stood strategist Vel, a thin-limbed Kareth advisor whose voice always sounded as if it had to force its way through too many teeth. "They are finished," Vel said quietly. "Their outer screen is gone. Their left battery group has been destroyed. They know it." Serrik kept watching the display. "Humans know many things," he said. "Too often, what they know is not what they show." On the lower tier of the bridge, signal officers called range updates in clipped Dominion cadence. "Enemy acceleration rising. Separation increasing. Heat bloom from aft sections on 3 hostile destroyers. Possible damage control venting." That part, at least, looked honest. The humans had taken punishment. Serrik had seen one of their cruisers lose an engine ring under concentrated ion lance fire. He had seen another ship limp through the wreckage of its own escorts, hull burning open to vacuum and yet still firing guns with the stubbornness of a trapped beast. They were bleeding, but they were not behaving like prey. "Marshal," said Weapons Director Talon, "our forward pursuit elements request permission to press and finish them before they reach the shadow corridor behind Talon Reach." Serrik did not answer immediately. Outside the vast bridge canopy, stars burned sharp and cold. Below them, the crescent limb of Talon Reach glowed bronze along one edge where its parent star struck the atmosphere. In the dark beyond the moon, there was emptiness, sparse debris, a dead mining lattice in distant orbit. Nothing else. No fortification, no ambush, no logical place for a smaller fleet to run. And still, Serrik's crest remained half-raised with unease. "Hold the pursuit line," he said. Talon turned, surprised. "Marshal." Vel's secondary hands folded behind his back. "Caution is wise, but excessive delay risks allowing them to break contact entirely." "Then they break contact," Serrik said. "I did not rise to command by taking gifts from humans with both hands." A faint murmur moved across the bridge. Dominion officers respected aggression. They revered certainty. Hesitation was tolerated only when spoken with enough force to sound like discipline. Serrik pointed one claw toward the display. "Look at their vectors. They are not fleeing in the most efficient pattern. Their ships are shaping a corridor. Why?" No one answered. Because no one had an answer he liked. On the human flagship Resolute, Admiral Mara Vance stood with one hand braced against the back of the tactical chair as the ship shuddered under another near miss. The bridge smelled faintly of burned insulation and coffee gone cold. "Damage report," she said. Commander Elias Rourke, her executive officer, did not look up from his console. "Portside armor on deck 12 is gone. We've got secondary fires contained. Aft rail battery 3 is still offline. Engine efficiency holding at 81%, which is a miracle I don't intend to question out loud." "Question it later," Vance said. A few strained laughs flickered across the bridge. That was good. Fear in a battle group was normal. Silence was dangerous. On the main display, the Dominion fleet stretched behind them in a vast spearpoint formation, clean, elegant, lethal. Their forward pursuit squadrons were hungry for the kill. Mara had expected that. Serrik's people liked decisive endings. They liked encirclements. They liked order closing around disorder until resistance became mathematically embarrassing. Unfortunately for them, mathematics belonged to everyone. "Distance to marker line?" she asked. Lieutenant Chen answered from navigation. 3 minutes, 40 seconds at current burn. Enemy closing? Lead pursuit elements are slowing. That drew eyes around the bridge. Rourke looked up. Slowing? Chen nodded. Main body holding disciplined spacing. Forward squadrons checked acceleration by 12%. Mara allowed herself the smallest breath. "Serrik," she said softly. Major Tessa Ward, Marine liaison and unofficial ambassador for every reckless impulse the fleet possessed, leaned against the rear console with a bruised grin. "Cautious bastard." "Competent bastard," Mara corrected. "Don't insult him. He earned this trap." Ward shrugged. "Would have been easier if he was stupid." "Stupid admirals don't lead winning fleets," Mara said. "They decorate memorial walls." She moved toward the central table where the plotted battle space rotated in pale blue light. The human formation looked exactly as intended, battered, bending, giving ground, destroyers drifting slightly wide, frigates covering the gaps, a tired fleet trying to preserve cohesion while running for its life. Everything about it was designed to invite pursuit. Not enough to scream trap, just enough to whisper weakness. Captain Arun Singh of the destroyer Black Wake appeared on the fleet link, his face grainy from signal degradation. "Mara, my port magazines are down to 37%, he said without preamble. "If this becomes a straight chase, I'm gonna have to start throwing shoes at them." Ward snorted. Mara leaned toward the pickup. "Hold another 4 minutes and you can throw whatever you want." Singh's eyes flicked off screen, probably to his own tactical display. "You think he's taking it?" "He's thinking about it." "That's worse." "Yes," Mara said. "It is." On another inset, Captain Luis Ortega of the cruiser Hawking cut in. His bridge alarm was audible even through the connection. "My stern is open to space, Mara. My chief engineer says one more hard correction and he's resigning from life. Tell him he can file paperwork after the battle. He says if he lives through this, he wants command of your flagship." Denied. Thought I'd ask. There it was again. Tight laughter, quick and thin. Not comfort. Defiance. Good enough. Mara looked around her bridge. Faces pale in monitor light. Hands moving too fast and too carefully. The practiced professionalism of people who knew the next few minutes would either go into doctrine manuals or disappear with them into vacuum. "Fleet-wide," she said. The communications officer nodded and pushed the channel open. Mara's voice carried across every surviving human hull. "This is Admiral Vance. They think we're running because we're hurt." She watched the bridge crew listen to her with the same focus as distant captains and gun crews and engine techs. "They're right. We are hurt. We've paid for every kilometer today. But that cuts both ways. We know exactly what this battle has cost, and we know what it's worth. Dominion doctrine says a retreating force collapses if pressed hard enough. Today, We're going to teach them that humans don't retreat the way other species do. She looked back to the tactical display. Stay on your vectors. Hold until the marker line. No heroics before the turn. Ward gave Rourke a dry look. She says that while looking directly at me. Rourke muttered. Because she knows you. Mara kept going. When I give the word, every ship turns on my mark. We open the lane, we light the net, and we hit the lead squadrons before the main body understands what they're seeing. If they keep coming, we gut them. If they hesitate, we split them. If they run, we chase. She paused. Steady hands. We've got them exactly where we wanted them. The channel clicked shut. No one spoke for a moment. Then Ward exhaled through her nose. Damn. I'd follow that into a volcano. You practically would, Rourke said. Depends. Do I get a rifle? On the judgment of Avon, Serrik studied the new data with growing irritation. The humans were transmitting across their fleet more heavily now. Tight beam traffic spiked, formation correction signals, power routing anomalies. Something was happening. Vel noticed it too. Their internal communication density has increased. Yes. Panic coordination? Serrik's crest lowered flat. If you say the word panic again, I will assign you to munitions inventory. Vel wisely said nothing. A sensor officer lifted his head. Marshal, unusual gravitic echoes detected in the retreat corridor. Serrik turned at once. Source? Uncertain, faint, possibly debris interacting with the moon's outer field. Possibly, Serrik said. The officer swallowed. The signal profile is intermittent. Talon tapped his station. There is a dormant mining belt in that region, yes? Old extraction platforms? Fragmented mass? There was, Vel said. It has been dead for 62 cycles. Serrik's gaze sharpened. Dead installations. Sparse debris. Faint gravitic echoes. He stepped closer to the display and expanded the zone beyond the human fleet. At first, there was nothing. Then, very faintly, tiny markers flickered in and out as sensor sweeps caught hard edges and lost them again against the dark. Not random, distributed, in depth. His voice became very calm. Signal all pursuit elements. Reduce acceleration, widen scan frequencies. I want active probing into that corridor. Talon hesitated. Marshal, active probing will alert them that we suspect an emplacement. They already assume I suspect something, Serrik said. Do it. Orders rippled outward. On the display, Dominion pursuit squadrons spread slightly, scanning. Needle-bright search pulses lanced ahead. For several seconds, nothing changed. Then one of the officers made a soft sound of alarm. The probes came back broken, not destroyed, bent, deflected. Something out there was absorbing or scattering the return in patterned ways. Vel stepped closer despite himself. Concealed mass. Serrik's pulse quickened, not with fear, but with the cold clarity that came when an enemy finally showed his hand. Minefields? No, said Talon. The spacing is wrong. Drone shells? Vel offered. Again, Serrik said no, because he knew humans. Humans never laid a single trap when 5 interconnected ones would do. Open hailing channel, he said. Talon blinked. To the enemy fleet? To Admiral Vance. Several heads turned. The name was known now. Even Dominion officers had heard the reports. Vance at Halcyon Gate, Vance at the Marrow Convoy, Vance who once scuttled her own supply ships to blind pursuers with a storm of frozen propellant and debris. A human officer whose gift was not aggression alone, but timing. The channel opened in a burst of static. After a heartbeat, a human face appeared. Female, severe, hair pulled tight, one cheek marked by a thin streak of blood she either had not noticed or did not care about. Fleet Marshal, Admiral Vance said. Her voice was steady. That alone was answer enough. "You are retreating into prepared positions," Serrik said. She tilted her head slightly. "Am I?" "Yes." "And yet you opened a channel instead of firing." Serrik felt several eyes on him. "Because I prefer not to spend lives needlessly when understanding will do." One corner of her mouth moved, not quite a smile. "That's almost human of you." Vel bristled visibly. Serrik ignored him. "If your intent is to delay my advance while other elements reposition, it will fail. If your intent is to lure my fleet into static defenses, it will also fail." Vance glanced off-screen, perhaps at her own timer. "Then you should probably stop following me." "Perhaps," Serrik said. "But you are not speaking like an admiral who believes escape is possible." "No," she said. "I'm speaking like one who knows what comes next." Static crackled between them. Serrik studied her expression. Not bluffing, not buying time. Waiting. "Break the channel!" he snapped. The screen went dark. At the same instant, the sensor officer shouted, "Marshal, multiple power signatures, ahead and below the human retreat axis." The dark beyond Talon Reach bloomed alive. On the Resolute, the marker line flashed across the tactical grid. Mara's hand came down on the edge of the table. "Now!" Everything happened at once. Throughout the retreat corridor, more than 200 dormant objects woke from silence. Not mines, not ships, mass drivers. The old mining lattice beyond Talon Reach had once hurled processed ore from extraction rigs to deep-haul barges in the planet's outer shadow. The Dominion had written it off decades earlier when the colony failed and the infrastructure died. But humans had spent the last 12 days quietly turning dead industry into a weapon. Each driver had been stripped, rewired, loaded, and slaved into fleet fire control. Instead of ore containers, they held dense ferric slag blocks scavenged from the moon's abandoned refineries and wrapped in cheap guidance skins. Not elegant munitions, not smart, barely even military, just mass, a lot of it. The first salvo launched from the dark like a silent avalanche. "Impact windows opening!" Chen called. "Human fleet turning!" Rourke said sharply. "All ships executing!" Outside the canopy, the stars rolled as Resolute swung hard to port. Across the battle space, every surviving human ship performed the same brutal maneuver. The fleeing line split down the middle and peeled outward, opening a vast corridor directly toward the leading Dominion squadrons. For half a second, Serrik's pursuit elements had a perfect lane. Then the corridor filled with steel. The ferric blocks came screaming out of darkness at impossible velocity, accelerated for mining distances, and only now finding military targets packed neatly into the space human ships had just vacated. The lead Dominion destroyer vanished in a white flower of shattered armor. Another took a mass slug directly through the bow and snapped apart so violently that 3 secondary vessels behind it were lanced by debris. Then the rest of the barrage arrived. On the Resolute, the bridge lit with impact icons. Ward gave a low whistle. "That's a hit." "That," Rourke said, staring, "is a lot of hits." The Dominion pursuit line disintegrated. Ships broke formation to evade, but there were too many projectiles and too little room. The human retreat vectors had shaped the enemy advance into a narrowing funnel. Serrik's own discipline had made it tighter, cleaner, deadlier. Mara did not waste the moment. "Signal attack phase. All batteries free. Prioritize crippled lead elements, then command and control hulls. Ortega, Singh, crossfire pattern Delta. Ward, prep assault boats for opportunistic boarding if anything drifts." Ward's grin returned with predatory life. "Now we're talking." Fleet comms erupted. "Blackwake engaging. Hawking has lock. Frigate screen turning hot." Human ships that had looked broken seconds earlier now came alive with fury. Railguns spat blue-white lances, missile pods rolled open, PDC webs stitched bright lines through vacuum as the first Dominion counterfire arrived late and confused. On an open channel, Singh barked to his crew, Pick the ones still thinking about what happened. The stunned ones die first. Another voice, female and sharp, Captain Naomi Vale of the frigate Kestrel, cut through. Dominion corvette on my nose. Somebody remove that problem. Ortega answered instantly. Happy to. Fire. The corvette vanished under converging kinetic fire. Mara listened as battle became voices again instead of icons. People choosing, reacting, cursing, surviving. That was the part Doctrine never fully captured. Wars were fought by fleets. Battles were won by crews. Open hailing channel to Dominion Tactical, she said. Rourke glanced over. Now? Now. The channel opened broad across the contested zone. This is Admiral Vance to Fleet Marshal Serrik, Mara said as guns thundered around them. You asked what came next. A beat of static. Then Serrik's voice returned, colder than before. A mining ambush. Clever. It's not the mine, Mara said. It's the turn. He understood that. She knew he did. The trap had never been just the mass drivers. Those were the hammer. The real strike was timing the human wheel, so Serrik's pursuit elements inherited the exact firing lane the retreating humans had abandoned. Human ships had trained 3 times in deep space to execute the maneuver without collision. They called it the Broken Gate. Run, shape the enemy, open, kill the front ranks, then hit the disordered body before it could reform. Serrik's answer came through teeth. You are still outnumbered. Then come finish it. Ward looked at Mara with open admiration. That's either inspiring or clinically insane. Those are not mutually exclusive, Rourke said. On the judgment of Avon, the bridge had lost all pretense of calm. Lead pursuit squadrons annihilated. Communications severed with 4th Spear. Cross-sector debris contamination. Human cruisers advancing into the breach. Talon's hands danced across his console. Marshal, we must pull back and reform the center. Vel snapped. If we retreat now, they will drive wedges through the line and isolate our carrier group. Serrik saw both truths at once, and that was the burden of command. The trap had bloodied him badly, but the humans were also committed now. They had turned, revealed their prepared ground. They were betting everything on the shock. If he yielded the initiative, Vance would carve his front apart and perhaps even survive the engagement. If he pressed blindly, she would feed him more pieces of his own fleet. He drew one breath, then another, and the answer came not from fear, but from respect. She wants our center disordered, Serrik said. So we deny her confusion. He stabbed a claw at the tactical table. Transmit to all surviving spear elements. Collapse pursuit, anchor on command grid 7. Outer wings advance only. We do not drive the center into the kill lane again. We let the humans overextend into our flanks. Talon looked up. Encirclement inversion. Yes, Serrik said. If she has opened a gate, we close it on her. Orders flashed outward. The Dominion fleet began to change shape with the beautiful menace of a living machine. Damaged lead units fell away. Rear elements moved in disciplined arcs. Heavy cruisers on the wings surged forward, not toward the trap corridor, but around it, seeking to wrap the now advancing human fleet in converging fire. Vel's voice gained confidence again. They used the moon's shadow and abandoned industry to break momentum. Admirable. But now they have nowhere else to run. Serrik did not answer, because Vance had not struck him as a commander with only one layer. And because, even now, human corvettes were doing something strange near the debris field. Tiny hulls, too small to matter against capital ships, too deliberate to ignore. Track those corvettes, he ordered. A sensor analyst frowned. They are seeding objects into the wreck cloud. Mines? No transponders, jammers? Talon's eyes widened. Marshal. They are tagging debris for active targeting. And then Serrik understood the second half of her plan. The mass driver ambush had shattered the pursuit line and filled the zone with wreckage. Now the humans were painting the debris field for smart fire solutions. They were about to weaponize the dead. "Signal all batteries," Serrik barked. "Point defense priority to debris intercept. All ships, raise collision alert." Too late. Human missiles plunged into the wreck cloud, vanished, then reappeared as swarms of secondary seekers, skipping from tagged hull fragments to live Dominion signatures. Rail rounds punched through drifting ship carcasses and sent molten armor plates spinning like blades. One crippled Dominion destroyer, still half-crewed, lost containment and blossomed into a spreading sphere of fire that turned nearby fragments into shrapnel storms. Vance had turned his own broken advance guard into a minefield made of Dominion dead. Vel stared in horror. "This is barbaric." Serrik's voice was iron. "No, it is effective." Another blast rocked the judgment of Avon. Somewhere below, alarms screamed. Port shield segment down to 42%. "Human destroyers breaking through Sector 4. Assault craft launched from enemy auxiliaries." At that, Vel spun. "Boarders?" Talon hissed. "Humans." Of course humans would board in the middle of fleet chaos. Of course they would see crippled capital ships not as wrecks, but as opportunities. Serrik opened his command channel. "All internal defense cadres to breach stations, no surrender compartments, any boarded system is to be hard sealed and vented if necessary." He did not enjoy giving such orders, but he had fought humans before. If you let them get inside your hull, the battle stopped belonging to range tables and became personal. And humans excelled at personal. On the assault shuttle Mako 2, Major Tessa Ward held on to an overhead strap while the craft tore through tumbling wreckage toward a crippled Dominion cruiser. Around her, 16 Marines in hard seal armor checked rifles, mag clamps, breaching cutters, and helmet feeds. No one talked much during final approach. The engine vibration said enough. At the front, Pilot Reyes kept her voice level. 30 seconds. Target cruiser still rotating slow. Breach point remains dorsal service ring. Ward keyed her squad channel. "Listen up. In and fast. We're not here to conquer the ship. We're here to make the Dominion think every dark corridor has teeth. Hit engineering relays, sensor trunks, fire control nodes. Then we leave before they figure out where we are." A corporal across from her grinned through his visor. "So the usual." Ward pointed at him. "Exactly the usual." Fleet comms crackled in her ear with overlapping voices. "Kestrel taking heavy fire. Missiles away, missiles away. Port wing Dominion cruiser is breaking left." Then Mara Vance cut across all of it. "Human battle group, hold pressure on the wings. Serrik is trying to close around us. Do not drift inward. Keep the corridor open." Ward smiled under her helmet. That was the thing she liked about Mara. Clear. Sharp. No wasted poetry while ships were dying. The shuttle slammed as debris clipped the outer hull. Reyes cursed. "That was expensive." "Fly better," Ward said. "Yes, ma'am." Another voice burst over open comm. Alien, translated through fleet software. Dominion command broadcast, likely intended for internal units, but bleeding across the engagement zone. "All vessels maintain discipline. Human aggression is local. Human courage is finite." Ward laughed out loud. "That guy doesn't know us at all." One of her sergeants said, "Can we send him a brochure?" The shuttle locked hard against the Dominion cruiser with a metallic shriek. "Contact," Reyes said. "Go!" Charges punched. Metal folded inward. Atmosphere tore out in a white scream. The Marines went through the breach at a run. Back on the Resolute, Mara watched the battle widen into madness. The opening strike had worked better than she had hoped, and worse than she had feared. Serrik had not panicked. He had absorbed the blow and shifted into a flanking constriction fast enough to prove every Dominion War College story about him had been deserved. The man was good, very good, which meant the final layer had to land. "Status of Ghost Line?" she asked. Chen answered at once. "Corvettes have completed beacon seeding, signal net stable." Rourke added, "Dominion wings are advancing exactly where we predicted." "Because Serrik wants to take back geometry," Mara said. "He might? Only if we let him own the dark." She tapped the command icon. "Bring the Ghost Line online." For a moment, nothing visible happened. Then, far beyond the main battle, cold points of light appeared in the black behind the Dominion right wing. 1, 3, 7, then dozens. New human signatures blossomed across enemy sensors in a sweeping arc. Cruiser mass, destroyer heat, active targeting pings, the unmistakable picture of reinforcements arriving on the flank. On the bridge, even Rourke let out a breath. The Ghost Line was not a fleet. It was every remaining transmitter buoy, reflector drone, decoy emitter, and scavenged sensor beacon they had hidden in Talon Reach's outer clutter field, all activated at once and layered to mimic battlegroup arrivals. The same mining network that had provided mass drivers also gave them power nodes and relay lattice. Enough, if used carefully, to paint ghosts convincing enough to frighten any commander already under pressure. "Dominion right wing is reacting," Chen said. "Breaking formation. Some units are turning to engage the false contacts." "Some?" Mara asked. Chen looked impressed despite herself. "Serrik's keeping the core moving." "Of course he is." On the comm, Ortega came through amid weapons fire. "Mara, tell me those are real." "They're real enough." He laughed once. "I love that answer." Open hailing suddenly flashed on Mara's console. Serrik, she accepted. His image appeared again, harsher now in flashing emergency light. Somewhere on his bridge, damage teams were clearly running behind him. "False fleet signatures," he said. "You built phantoms." Mara met his stare. "You followed a retreat into dead industry. Seems we're both making use of old things." "You cannot break me with illusions." "No," she said, "but I can make you look two directions at once." His eyes narrowed. "And what do humans call that?" "Creating a problem." The channel cut. Ward's voice burst in over marine comms, breathless and exhilarated. "Mara, we're inside their cruiser. They are not happy." "You don't say?" "We knocked out internal sensors on 3 decks and just introduced their fire control room to explosives. Also, one of them tried to bite Sergeant Hale through a helmet." A pause. "Did it work?" Mara asked. "No, but I respect the effort." Rourke pressed fingers into his forehead. "I'm too old for this job." "No, you're exactly old enough," Mara said. Then the tactical display shifted again. The Dominion right wing, uncertain under the Ghost Line deception, lost cohesion for 12 vital seconds. That was all she needed. "Signal all ships," Mara said. "Concentrate on the left. Break the stronger wing before the right recovers. Full commit." Rourke relayed it. Across the human fleet, engines flared. Damaged destroyers plunged forward beside frigates that should have withdrawn an hour ago. The cruiser Hawking, stern half-ruined and venting atmosphere in a constant mist, rolled broadside and fired every surviving rail tube in one savage synchronized strike. Singh's black wake cut across the bow of a heavier Dominion hull so close that PDC tracers stitched sparks over both ships' armor before its missile pods emptied point blank into the enemy's engine block. On the comm-net, human voices became a storm. "Target burning! Stay on him, stay on him! We're through, we're through! Medic to Section C! Reload, reload, reload!" And under it, Dominion transmissions leaked through in clipped translated fragments. "Reform the line! Port battery lost! Boarders on deck 4! Where is command guidance?" Mara felt the shape of it. The moment when a battle stopped being a contest of plans and became a test of nerve. Serrik still had ships. more than she did, but he no longer had certainty. And certainty was what Dominion fleets used as armor. Without it, they bled like anyone else. Fleet Marshal Serrik stood amid a bridge lit by firelight and failing displays and knew with perfect clarity that Admiral Mara Vance had done something few commanders ever achieved. She had changed the emotional physics of the field. His officers still obeyed, his ships still fought, but the invincible momentum of Dominion doctrine was gone. In its place was calculation, reassessment, the slightest poison of doubt. Humans fought like gamblers until the first advantage appeared. Then they became accountants. Every weakness was itemized. Every hesitation charged interest. He looked across the tactical display and saw the truth. Vance's fleet was dying, and winning. Not because her ships were stronger, not because her crews feared less, but because she had designed a battle in which every human sacrifice purchased confusion at a higher rate than Dominion sacrifice purchased control. He almost admired it enough to smile. Almost. "Marshal," Talon said quietly, "left wing collapse imminent. Recommend disengagement before command carrier is isolated." Vel began. "To withdraw now would—" "To preserve the fleet," Serrik cut in, "is not dishonor." Silence followed. Then he gave the hardest order of the day. "All Dominion forces, controlled withdrawal by echelon. Recover crippled hulls where possible. Burn denial charges on unrecoverable assets. Maintain fire on human advance. We leave nothing they can board, salvage, or celebrate too closely." Talon transmitted at once. On the screen, the Great Dominion formation finally began to bend away. Not rout, not flight. Disengagement, professional, ordered, bitter. Serrik opened one final narrowband channel to the human flagship. Vance appeared again. Smoke drifted somewhere behind her now. Her bridge had suffered too. "You will not pursue far," Serrik said. "No," she answered. "I won't." He inclined his head by a fraction. A warrior's acknowledgement, stripped of ceremony. "You built a retreat that attacked. You built a pursuit that almost survived it." That, too, was true. Serrik let out a slow breath. "Until next time, Admiral." "Until then, Marshal." The channel closed. He stood in silence as the stars shifted and the battered remains of his fleet pulled away from Talon Reach. He had lost the field, but not the war. Humans always made victory expensive. That was their genius, and their flaw. One day he thought they would spend too much. The battle ended not with cheers, but with work. On the Resolute, alarms still pulsed. Damage control teams still fought heat and vacuum and failing conduits. Medical bays overflowed. Rescue craft moved among drifting wrecks, pulling survivors from shattered compartments regardless of uniform whenever they could reach them before the cold did its work. Mara stood on the bridge and watched the last Dominion signatures fade toward deep space. Behind her, Rourke sagged into the tactical chair like a man whose skeleton had become optional. Ward's face appeared on the comm, helmet off now, soot streaked across her forehead. "We're back aboard. Took their fire control relays with us. Also, Hale wants it noted for the record that the biting alien was eventually discouraged." "I'll put him in for a medal," Mara said. "Can it mention the biting specifically?" "I'll see what I can do." Ward's grin softened. "Hell of a plan, Mara." Mara looked at the broken battle space. Dead mining platforms, cooling wreckage, a corridor of ruin where a fleeing fleet had become a killing line. It was a hell of a risk. "That too." Ortega's voice drifted in next, weary and amused. "For the record, I hated every second of that." Singh followed immediately. "Liar! You loved at least 30%. 40, Ortega admitted. On the bridge, some of the tension finally cracked. Not into celebration, into exhausted humanity. Chen leaned back from her console. Signal confirms Dominion full withdrawal. Rourke rubbed his face. So we actually did it. Mara nodded once. Yes, she said. We did. Outside, Talon Reach hung silent and bronze and ancient, as if none of this had mattered to it at all. But to history, it would matter. Because somewhere in the Dominion fleet, survivors were carrying home a lesson their war colleges would be forced to write down in permanent ink. Humans retreat, humans fall back, humans give ground. But when humans run, the wise do not assume they are trying to escape. Sometimes they are only choosing the place where they want you to die.
If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more tales of humanity rising among the stars, please like, comment, and subscribe. New stories are released regularly here on Empyrean Chronicles.